Hello, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you how to set up an API using Node.js. For the purposes of this tutorial, I will assume that you already have Node and npm installed. So the first step that we need to take in order to create an API with Node.js is initialize an npm project. In order to do that, I have an empty folder here that I've called to-do list API. And here in the command line, I am going to type npm init. This will bring you through a series of questions like what do you want your package name to be, and in this case the default value is to-do list API, and all of the default values are located within the parens. So I'm just going to use all the default values here, and then here you can see it generates an object with a number of key value pairs. These are the answers to the questions that we were just asked. Hit yes, and here you can see it has created a package.json file. This contains the same information that we see here in the terminal. So first thing I want to do is install some npm packages that will enable us to build this out more easily. So first one, I'm going to run npm I body-parser. This allows you to automatically parse out JSON that is sent to your API routes. I'm going to also install dotenv. This will allow you to set up an env file which can house your sensitive information such as a JSON Web Token secret. This is the portion of a token that the third parties are not supposed to know, and it enables you to verify that the request is coming from a trusted person. And lastly, I'm going to install Express. This is what we will use to actually create our routes. So hit enter and it will install those 3 packages. No errors, perfect. Next I'm going to install a dev dependency. This is this will be a package that listens to our code changes and will automatically restart our API so that we always have the latest changes when we're actually making calls to our API. So npm I --save -dev, this installs it as a dev dependency, and type nodemon. Hit enter, and there we are. So here you can see dev dependency nodemon, and then regular dependencies are body-parser, .env, and express. So next I am going to come up here to line 6 where the scripts object starts, and I'm going to create a script called start, and it will run nodemon server.js. So server.js is going to be our entry file, and again nodemon, that starts the server and runs it locally and listens to our code changes to automatically update. Next, I am going to actually create the server.js file, and I am going to create our Express app. So const express equals require express. This imports the Express npm package for our use. I'm going to create an app variable that utilizes the default export from Express, and I am going to create a port variable. So this will be the port on which our API is listening. So where our API when running locally will be on localhost colon and then whatever that port value is. So I am going to set it to use our env variable port or 3000. So if this doesn't exist, then use 3000. And lastly, I am going to import the body parser package for use. So body parser equals required body parser. And I am going to now set up the env file. So create a new file, .env, and in here I am just going to create a port variable and set it to 3001. Now back in server.js, in order for this file to actually know what process.env.port is, you need to come up here and type require .env and .config. So this will make the env variables available to your file. Next, I am going to type app.use body-parser.url encoded, and I'm going to pass in an object with a key extended and value true. What this does is this is saying, hey, use this middleware. So a middleware essentially intercepts an API call and then runs some piece of functionality beforehand. So this could be appending like a request time to the call and then passing it on to whichever route it's supposed to hit. Or in this case, we're saying, hey, use the body parser package to parse out the request, and extended true. This will allow us to send any data type. So in our body, by default, you can only send strings or arrays, but by using this, we are able to send objects and integers and everything that we need. Next, I'm going to create another middleware. So this will be body-parser.json. So this will automatically parse out our body into JSON format, whereas normally it would be received as a string. Next, I am going to import our routes, which we have yet to make, but this is where you do it. So app.use require, so now we're importing it. We'll do /, it will be in the routes folder, and it will be called todolist.js. So this file will house our routes, our endpoints, and since it is located below these two middleware, it will automatically use those middleware. If I was to put it above the two middleware, it would hit the route first and then go and hit the middleware, which is not what we want. Alright. Next, I'm going to define an error handler. So what this is going to do is it will catch any errors that the routes throw, and it will actually handle our response to those errors and send it to our user. So it takes 4 variables or 4 arguments: an error, a request, a response, and a next, which is a callback. So the error is what we are passing through, or if the API has an error, that's what it will be. The request is what the request is from the user. The response is how we send back a response. And then next is just a callback. In this case, it won't be used, but it'll essentially, you would call it like this and pass in any information. If you don't pass anything, I believe it just sends null, but this will say, hey, I've done what I need to do, move on to the next piece or next step. So what we're going to do is we are going to set the status of the response to error.status or 500 by default. 500 is an internal server error, so if we don't send another one, which is like 401, which is unauthorized, or 403, which is forbidden, or 404, which is not found, then it'll by default use 500. So just a general server error. And then we are going to send our error response to the user. So res.json, this will send back a return value in JSON format. So what we're going to do for readability and ease of use on the front end, which we're not building a front end, but this is what I like to do. An object with an error key that has status, and this will be the error.status or 500, and a message, and this will be error.message. And that's it for the error handler. Lastly, we are going to start our app on the port that we specified up here. So app.listen on port 3001 in this case. And just so that I know that it has actually started correctly, I am going to type a console log, and this will just show me in the console that it has been started on the port that I expect. So perfect. Now, since this doesn't exist, I'm going to just show you what it looks like when it starts. So down here in the console, I am going to type npm start. And here you can see it displays some information from nodemon, and these are the file extensions that it's looking for. So if we make edits to JavaScript, whatever MJS is, or JSON files, it will automatically restart the server. Nodemon internally runs node server.js, and here we can see API is listening on port 3001 as we specified in our env. Now that we've verified that our API starts and is actually running on port 3001, what we need to do is create the routes or endpoints that users can hit to gain information or create information. So over here, I'm going to right-click and create a new folder called routes. And in it, I am going to create a file called todolist.js. So this file will house our routes for our to-do list API. First, I'm going to use strict, and I am going to import the express router. So router equals require express dot router. Don't call it. Next, I'm going to create our router variable that actually utilizes the router constructor. So and we're also going to be exporting this for use in our server.js file, which we can see here. So what we're going to do is const router equals module.exports equals new router. So we're instantiating a new router. And for the purposes of this simple API, I'm going to create a makeshift database, and it'll just be an array of to-do list entries. You can see down here, every time I save a file, it automatically runs and restarts due to changes and shows that it is running on port 3001 again. So the first route that we're going to create is a simple get route. This will return all of our to-do list entries located in this array. So what we're going to do is router.get. This specifies a get route, and we are going to create the endpoint /to-do list /entries, and we are going to pass in a function. So it'll be an asynchronous, well, we don't have to make it asynchronous for the purposes of this video. Takes in a request. This is what is coming from the client. A response. This is how we send a response back to the client. And a next callback, which I explained earlier, when called, sends information, or at the very least just tells the API like, hey, I've completed what I need to do here, move on to the next step. So we are going to create a try catch block. Catch will have the error, and it will just call next with the error. So when an error occurs, this will send the error that has occurred back to our server.js file, and it will hit this error handler that we created before, and then send the error and what went wrong to the user. So we come back in here to our get route. In the try, this will be a simple one. We'll just res.json to-do list entries. So this will send back a JSON formatted response, and it'll just be the to-do list entries array. Next, we want to create a route for users to actually create to-do list entries. So router.post. Post is used as a creation. So in the acronym is CRUD: create, read, update, and delete. Create signified by a post. So post to-do list /entries again. Oh, I can spell type. Next, we're going to do the rec, res, and next function with a try catch again. And again, we're just going to pass the error on to the error handler. So in the try section, we are going to create a couple variables here. So the first one is new entries. So this will be the list of entries to append to our to-do list entries database. And this will start out as an empty array. Next, we are going to figure out what the current max ID is in our to-do list entries table. So what we are going to do here is math.max, and then we are going to use the spread operator to pass in each of these array values as a comma separated list into math.max, which is what it's expecting. Entries.map, we are going to convert each entry object into its ID value. So it'll just be an array of IDs. And we are also going to pass math.max the option 0. So it'll be whatever IDs are currently located in to-do list entries, which in this case is an empty array, so there will be no values added. So we want to pass in the value 0 as a default, saying, hey, the current maximum ID is 0 because the list of entries is empty. Next, we are going to loop over our request body object. So we are going to run for let entry of rec.body.entries. So this is saying I want to loop over the array that has been passed into the body labeled as entries. And for each one, I am going to increase the max ID value by 1. I'm going to create a new entry, and this will be an object with an ID of max ID, and then just spread the other values from the entry object located in the entries array that was given to us. Finally, I'm going to append or push the new entry into the to-do list entries array, and I am also going to push it to the new entries array. So I'm going to use this new entries array as a temporary holder for our response. So we have our list of new entries, and finally we want to send the user back the list of new entries that they just created, so that they can verify that they were created correctly and with the information that they expected. And that handles the creation portion. Next, we want to give our users a way to update specific entries. So say they wrote down the name of the entry wrong, or put in the incorrect due date for their entry, or yeah. So this will be router.put, and again, to-do list entries, but this time we are going to take in a parameter of ID. So what this is saying is, hey, this is a parameter located in the URL, and it has a name of ID. So again, rec, res, and next with a try, catch, error, next, error. And then in this try, we are going to first pull the ID parameter from the request object. So we are going to do rec.params.id. The params object holds all of the URL parameters that are passed in, and this will actually be a string. So what we want to do is use parseInt to make sure that it's a numerical value, so that we can accurately compare it against our to-do list entries. Now that we have that, we want to loop through our to-do list entries. To-do list entries dot length I++. So if to-do list entries at position I dot ID equals the ID value that we've been given, then we want to update that entry. So we want to use the existing values that the entry has, and we want to update them with the new information that we've been given. So we create a new object, we spread in the existing information on that to-do list entry, and then we spread in the information that we've been given. So this could contain a title or a due date or a new piece of information. So rec.body.data, it will be located on the body object. It's a variable or a key called data. And we are going to then send the updated object back to the user in an array to match what our other routes are sending. And then we are going to break the loop because we don't need to continue looping through once we found our target. And that concludes the put. Lastly, we need to give the user a way to delete an entry. So say they added an entry that they didn't mean to or no longer need. So this will be router.delete to-do list entries, and again we will take in a parameter of ID, rec, res, and next, and try catch error next error. First, we are going to set to-do list entries to the to-do list entries dot filter. So we're filtering out the specified ID, so the specified entry. So entry, we want to only have the entries remaining that don't share this ID value. So entry.id does not equal parseInt rec.params.id. And that's all there is to it. Finally, we send back the current to-do list entries. Now that we have our routes written, we need to come back into the server.js and uncomment this line 12 app.use require routes to-do list.js. So now our routes are able to be accessed, and next I will show you how to access these routes with Postman. So if you're not familiar with Postman, it is an application that allows you to create and manage HTTP requests. So what that enables you to do is test that your routes are doing what they need to be doing before you actually release them to production instances. So I'm on postman.com. Come over here in the top right and click sign up for free. Pretty straightforward. Email, username, password. Click create free account, and this will walk you through how to create these HTTP requests. Here on my postman, you can see that I have created 4 HTTP requests, one for each of our routes. So we have the get, post, put, and delete. Here, if I click on the get, it brings up this little view. You can see method of get, and then it hits our route, which is localhost 3001 to-do list entries. It doesn't need any parameters, authorization, headers, body. Don't worry about any of that for now. Our get request is very simple. So if I hit send, and make sure that your API is running locally, if I hit send, we should see an empty array here in the response. Yep, empty array. So that means that we have successfully hit our API and received our list of to-do entries. When it starts, it is an empty array because we haven't created any. So we're going to go over to our post, and here again, method of post hits localhost 3001 to-do list entries. For this, here in the get, it defaulted to params, but here we want to go over to body, and then we want to actually select raw, and in this drop down select JSON. So this will allow you to create a JSON entry, and that will send the JSON in the body to our API. So here, let me bring this down. I have created a couple of entries in our, so it's an object with an entries property and a value of an array. And within the array, there are 3 objects. Each one is going to be an entry in our to-do list entries array. So we have a title, and the first one is grocery shopping, and then a due date, and we have 7/26/2022 at 6 p.m. Next one, title, take out trash, due date of 7/27 at 10 p.m. And then finally, can't forget my wife, got a date with her on 7/30 at 6:30 p.m. So if I run this, we should receive a successful response, and this will be our list of to-do entries that we just created, along with an ID for each one. So if I do send, yep, our response is the list that we just, the list of entries that we just created, along with an ID for each. So 1, 2, and 3, because there are 3 entries. And now, you know what? Actually, the trash comes on the 28th, and you know what? I actually have an engagement at 10, so I'm going to update it to be at 11 o'clock to put out the trash. So I'm going to come over here to my put, and here you can see that I am specifying, it's a put. The route is 3001 to-do list entries, and I want to update ID2. If I come back to the post, you can see ID2 is take out trash, and the parameters here are actually data, and this will be the object that we are sending that has the information to update. So again, body, and then select raw and JSON, and then we have our due date 7/28 at 11 p.m. If I send this, then we should receive back the to-do list entry that is take out trash, and it should have the updated due date. So I hit send. Let's take a look. Yep, we received back ID 2, title, take out trash, and the due date now matches what we sent it. So if I come back up to the get and run it, we should see 3 entries, and the second entry should have the updated value. And that's exactly what we see. Grocery shopping, take out trash at 7:28, and date with wife at 7:30. Alright, and the final route, delete. Say we aren't going grocery shopping. We're gonna be eating out loud this week. Don't want to go grocery shopping. Cooking's a pain. So I want to remove that entry from my list. So delete method, localhost 3001 to-do list entries, and remove the entry with ID of 1. Doesn't take any parameters, doesn't have body. So we are going to run this, and it should return our list of to-dos without the first entry. So I hit enter or send, and that's exactly what we see. It's an array of 2 items, take out trash and date with wife, and the first one, grocery shopping, is not here. If we go back over to the get and hit send again, now you see that the entry has been removed. And that'll do it for our API built with Node.js. If you found this helpful, or if you found it interesting, please remember to leave a like and subscribe. It helps more than you may know. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see in future videos. It could be related to APIs, or it could be on a totally different subject. Just let me know. And thank you for watching.